entire life changed in minutes, not days, in minutes.
Couldn't catch my breath. We were hanging trusses. Right then I left and the job site and I went straight to the hospital. Within an hour, 2 hours, they had me in open heart surgery, triple bypass.
It wasn't like she went in there and she says, I don't feel I can work. No, she's being told medically, this is not something you're going to be able to do anymore.
I went to Georgia for 5.5 months because I knew I couldn't pay my bills here. I ended up leaving there and coming back here. And the only thing I had was my car. You know, you're 60 years old, not knowing if somebody's going to beat on your car window. You know, you're out there by yourself. I got called into the office and I came in. He asked me a couple of questions and everything like that to explain my situation in depth. And he says, how would you like to sleep in a bed tonight? And I'm like, absolutely.
We kind of set some expectations. We try to give you the tools you need to meet those expectations. But ultimately, she's got to put in the work. You know, we can't want it more than she wants it. And this girl wants it.
They've given me new life. Total different than it was before.
Hi everyone, I'm Tracy Lewis from Imagine Marketing, and I'm joined by Pastor Scott, who is the founder and CEO of Matthew's Hope, as well as Laurie, who's one of the guests that Matthew's Hope serves. This week, we have another installment of our Real Faces of Homelessness series, where we introduce you to some of the people that Matthew's Hope serves in an effort to educate people about what homelessness really looks like. Welcome to episode 77 of Straight Talk, No BS with Matthew's Hope, presented by Imagine Marketing. Imagine Marketing is a full-service marketing firm based in Winter Garden, Florida. Our comprehensive marketing solutions will help drive a unified message across all mediums. We also offer photography, videography, and even podcast production services. Book a free consultation today. Scott, before we learn about Laurie's story, why is it so important to have this Real Faces of Homelessness series on the podcast?
Well, I think it's important that people understand what the real face of homeless looks like. I mean, it's easy to say, but typically what happens is people have an idea based on something they saw, or worse yet, something they heard. And there's an ignorance about it. I've done some speaking lately, and I always have to remind them that there's a difference between ignorance and stupidity. Ignorance is not knowing what you don't know. So there's not an insult there. It's saying you don't know, you need to know. Stupid is you know, and you keep doing the same thing. And, you know, it's been interesting. I literally had an email the other day, or actually it was on my Facebook page. And I was talking about something, and this person responded to me in this way. I feel like we should round them all up like we do wild dogs. Bathe them, give them their shots, and if they aren't in a program within 6 months, we euthanize them.
Dang.
I followed this back, as you can do on Facebook, to see what this person, who they were. And they were a proud elder in their church. And I thought to myself, wow. Not just because I don't even claim to be a Christian anymore. I'm a Christ follower. But as a Protestant ordained pastor, I really struggled with how do you reconcile that in your mind. But unfortunate when you are in social media as much as I have to be and meet with as many people as I have to meet, this is not an uncommon thought. You know, it's kind of like when I get a chance to meet with, I get to speak with children at schools. And one of the most fascinating thing I've ever seen was when an age group, say between 6, 7 years old, and I'll say to them, I usually start out with a collage of pictures and ask them to point out the homeless people. And often they're wrong. And then they're very surprised to see my picture because they can't get their head around that I'm there talking to them, but they see the picture. But then I ask them often, what do they know about homeless people? And if you've ever been in front of an age group like that, I mean, they're all throwing their hands up, you know, and you'll get lazy, you'll get drunks, you'll get, they don't like to work, you'll get, they're crazy, you'll hear all these things. And I remember the first time that I heard these children say this, and when I got back to my truck, I got thinking about it and thought, how in the world does a child of that age group form an opinion? It's not an opinion. It's a learned behavior.
No, they heard it somewhere.
And, you know, latest statistics are coming out now, and only 21% of the people out there right now are what are considered chronic homeless. And so, well, who are the rest of these people? And currently, what's being shown is that 40% of all newly first-time homeless people are baby boomers and people under the age of 18. 40%. So, when you hear these things, you're sitting there going, okay, we've got to change the narrative and get people to understand that there's a lot of different ways people become homeless. Not one of them is good. And then ultimately, does it really matter?
Yeah.
But so that is why I suggested we've had, Laurie and Donnie, a few others over time come on. And I want Laurie to kind of share today, because she's had a life prior to homelessness. She's had a life during homelessness. And she has her life now. And then she's going to have this other life afterwards. Mm-hmm. So that's why I think it's important. It's a long-winded answer, but that's really the answer. Is we need to educate people that want, first off, that desire to be educated, and not just repeat something because they heard it.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Scott. Laurie, can you describe what your life was like before you became homeless?
Yes, ma'am. Years before, I was a single mom.
However far back you want to go.
Well, I was a single mom, and I raised my children by myself. I worked every day of my life. And then they grew up, of course. Mm. And then I started having to put them in daycare. You know what I mean? Put them in daycare and everything like that. And then when they got older, I was basically by myself, and still had to work every day of my life. Mm-hmm. And I was just doing the everyday thing like everybody else, living life, doing what you're doing. And then I took custody of my grandchildren. Mm. And when that happened, I had them for almost 13 years. And I had triple bypass. I got sick on the job. It wasn't because drugs, alcohol, or anything like that. I got sick, and I went to the hospital and ended up that night having triple bypass.
Wow. And so you shared a little bit how, is that what kind of snowballed it into you becoming homeless?
I think yes, ma'am. With you're not being able to go back to work as quickly as you would like. Mm-hmm. Some people aren't ever able to go back to work after something like that. I tried to get my Social Security. They denied me, wouldn't give it to me. And I'm raising kids, couldn't get any help.
Right.
So.
Laurie, so you were renting.
Yes, ma'am.
And you got ill. You're trying all the things, Social Security, you're taking care of your grandbabies. Take us back to what happened next.
Well, what happened next is after I couldn't work, obviously. Couldn't pay my bills, didn't know where anything was coming from. I couldn't get a job because I had to make sure they were at school on a certain time and get off school at a certain time. Had to be there to pick them up.
And you're recovering, right? You said you had a triple bypass?
Yes, ma'am.
So it's a huge recovery.
It's a huge recovery, but I had to make sure I wasn't even supposed to drive, but I had to do what I had to do.
Wow.
And basically, I let my daughter take back the kids. She got her life straight. Okay. And I left. I went to Georgia for 5.5 months, where my niece was. Okay. Because I knew I couldn't pay my bills here. And I ended up leaving there and coming back here. And the only thing I had was my car.
People need to. I want to kind of give her a chance to breathe a little bit.
To catch your breath, of course.
And Laurie, I really appreciate you sharing this.
Yes.
And I've been homeless, but we all have a different story and how that happened, what happened, and often it's completely out of your control. Yeah. I want to interject this, that when she talks about working, Laurie spent her life working in construction. She liked being outside. She liked being up in the rafters and doing that kind of stuff. And it was while she was at work that she just didn't feel right. Mm. And she's up, as I remember right, she's like up in the rafters of this building that she's working on. And it's like, something's going on here. Mm-hmm. I need to get down here.
Couldn't catch my breath. We were hanging trusses. And I told my boss, I said, I got to go to the hospital. He's like, what's wrong with you? I said, I can't breathe. I can't catch my breath. Mm-hmm. And I went there right then. I left and the job site and I went straight to the hospital, and they tried to do a catheterization on my neck. It didn't work. Within an hour, 2 hours, they had me in open heart surgery, triple bypass.
I bet that was scary.
Yes, ma'am, it was. They took a vein out of my leg. Mm-hmm. So, you know, when you walk, it kind of feels funny. Yep. But I'm going strong now. It's Matthew's Hope, because they gave me hope.
What was it like, the realization that, okay, I'm homeless, what's next?
Scary. You know, you're 60 years old, you know, not knowing if somebody's going to beat on your car window or try to do something to you while you go to the bathroom. You know, you're out there by yourself. And it's not fun.
So before the triple bypass, had you ever imagined becoming homeless?
No, ma'am. I never imagined that whatsoever. I was always a strong woman, worked every day, thought everything was going great. It takes one little setback, like getting sick, having a divorce. You could be homeless tomorrow.
Absolutely.
And you're not expecting that. But you got to play the cards you're dealt, you know? You got to play.
And you were taking care of your children. You were taking care of grandbabies. So it wasn't just you. You were taking care of others too. So that's hard.
Right.
And if I can, I want to, this is, you know, Tracy asked about what's it like being out there. I want you to kind of take yourself back there a little bit. Because like you said, you don't know who's approaching your car. You don't know where you're going to use the restroom. You don't know where you're going to eat. You really don't have any control, and you're trying to function with a body that's not cooperating with you right now.
Absolutely.
And then you're trying to use the system that was designed or supposed to be designed to help you, and you're being turned down. Okay. I mean, it wasn't like she went in there and she says, I don't feel I can work. No, she's being told medically, this is not something you're going to be able to do anymore. Okay. But you know, fortunately, and we'll get on some more of the story, but fortunately, this was even before this new law that was put into place that made it illegal to sleep outside.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on that?
People's got to sleep somewhere. If they can't get no help from, you know, the city, the state, you know, they got to sleep somewhere. And it's not fair for them to be put in jail.
Right.
I don't think that's fair at all, because they just got to have somewhere, whether it be under a bridge, there's legislators and stuff like that. What would happen if it happened to their family?
Which it could.
Or themselves, you know? Like I said, it's one thing away from being homeless. Mm-hmm. And maybe then they would change their minds,
yeah.
How they think.
you know, and try to help a little bit more, because like I said, it's crazy. You see a lot of things, and it's just scary.
So before becoming homeless and you would drive by somebody who was, did you have any thoughts or ideas or perception on them?
Yes, ma'am, I did. You know, everybody's got their opinions, you know. Hopefully they keep them to themselves. But I did. I would see, like, guys that, even women, but they look like they're healthy as can be. And a lot of them isn't.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's like with me, I was as healthy as I could be, but then I wasn't. But you get this, you know, mentality, some people that doesn't want to believe any different than other than what they see.
And, or what they think they see.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, or what they don't see, you know, and like with mental, you know, people with mental problems, people with just regular problems, they don't see it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, they judge everybody, you know, and you really shouldn't until you walk a mile in their shoes, you know.
Definitely.
So, yeah, it's funny that, I mean, even for us from Matthew's Hope standpoint, there are times, you know, we've talked about Donnie in the past, when we first brought Donnie in, his bipolar symptoms and his major head injury didn't really reveal themselves till a few weeks in. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, now I really understand compared. I mean, it ends with a good story, but that is so common that someone will pass somebody. And again, I hear it on social media all the time. I hear it from our legislators. I've heard it from our president, about these lazy people feeding off the system. And I'm not going to suggest for a minute that there's not some of them out there. But what I will suggest this is that most of the homeless people that you'll see, there's a big difference between poverty and homelessness. Poverty is, a lot of people live in poverty and it can go generations, and they've learned how to work the system and work within it, right? Fall into homelessness is a much steeper fall. Though Laurie wasn't wealthy, she made a decent living, a well enough living to not only take care of her children and her grandchildren. Okay, and if anybody has kids, knows what's that guy, get them back and forth to school, do all those other things you got to do. She was doing that. She was accomplishing all that. And that's for any single woman of children, grandchildren, we see this all the time, that is handling that alone. But see, most people don't see that. They don't see what's going on. They don't know what's happening behind the scenes. And, it's even some of the women that we see out there panhandling. The truth is many aren't, but the truth also is, it's worse than that, is many of them are being human trafficked as well. And so you have that going on. So you think, well, this woman's out there doing this. Well, no, if you knew where to look, you'll see the guy off in the distance making sure that she's doing her job, whatever that job is.
Right. So, Laurie, how did you end up as a guest of Matthew's Hope?
That was interesting. I had been going to the food banks all around, getting stuff to eat. Well, my car got a little bit full and I had no room to sleep. So I'm like, man, I got to do something. I got to get a comfortable night's rest, So I got to thinking, and then I thought, I'm going to Matthew's Hope. And I drove around the back, not quite sure, about where to go, what to do. And I went around back and I met Miss Ashley, and nicest girl. And I said, can I donate some food to you? Because, I got a little bit too much that I can't eat, but I need some place to sleep. And she's like, what do you mean? I said, well, I'm sleeping in my car. And she's like, you're here donating food and you're homeless. And I said, yes, ma'am. So anyway, she started telling me about the services and what it entailed, the whole program, the whole program thing. And I came in and I started using the services. And I liked the time that I did because it was getting cold. And I came in for cold shelter. And I'm not one to sit around. And I just got up and started helping and doing whatever during the whole time that we were here, that I was here. And it turned into a blessing.
And what's interesting is that, one of the things that we do is we observe our guest. We just watch. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching this girl and I'm sitting there going, man, there was a couple things I noticed right off the bat. The fact that she was in constant motion, helping other people, helping our volunteers and helping our staff. But then what really got to me was the fact that she was helping other homeless people with, whether it's cleaning up, helping make their beds. We had some elderly men that were just really struggling to try to figure out how to make up their cot and stuff. And Laurie helped with that. And the staff and I started talking about it. It's like, hey, I said, I want to keep an eye on this one. I said, there's something about her and we need to watch her. And I'll let her take it from there. But that's really what happened.
Yeah. So they called me in the office and was talking to me because I didn't know really a lot about the program. I just heard, people's been in it. And so Great, I'm sleeping in my car still. And I got called into the office, and I came in, and Scott was in there. I believe Miss Charlene was in there. And he asked me a couple of questions and everything like that to explain my situation in depth. And I did that. And he says, how would you like to sleep in a bed tonight? And I'm like, what? You know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So you are now in the Moving Forward Transitional Housing Program. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. He automatically put me into a place to live. It was a great place. Had all the amenities, everything that you could possibly ask for. If I needed something, they were a phone call away. And then I recently, probably about 3 weeks ago, got put into a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo. And got everything in there.
Nice.
I even got a stove.
And to what I understand, this is a process, right?
Yes.
So what are you doing moving forward to be in this program?
I'm doing a lot of work here. You mean at Matthews Hope? I've been in the kitchen cooking with Miss Jody. I've been to the shop across the street, Hope Chest, and I've been redoing furniture. Just a little bit of everything.
And it's been kind of interesting because when, I realized that she can work with her hands.
Mm-hmm.
She's used to working with wood.
She seems very handy.
Things like that. I'm going, let's see if she can do what she can do with some of the furniture we're restoring and stuff. So she started doing that, and then gosh darn it, she helped cook one day, and next thing I know, our chef Jody's saying, well, I'd really like her in here helping me. So she's really kind of doing both right now to earn her points and earn her way.
So there's requirements and expectations of Laurie. What are those things?
Well, I mean, people need to understand. We do a background check on everybody, and it's not to disqualify them. It's so we know what we're working with. Mm-hmm. We look at where you stand with your credit. We do credit checks. We
because
drug
it helps
test.
Several people improve their credit, even, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
And so we look at everything that every one of us should be looking at every day. Where do we stand financially? What's our credit rating looking like? Where are we at health wise? So, these folks go through a health evaluation through our medical team. Because again, it's not that we're looking to disqualify, but we want to know where's Laurie at with her health. We don't want to push her too far. Mm-hmm. At the same time, we want her to be able to do and be the best version of herself she can be.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So she goes through a mental health evaluation. She goes through the medical evaluation. We drug test whether you have had a problem or not. We randomly do that. We do that with all the guests. It's not to judge. So like we have people most of our folks have never touched drugs or never had an alcohol problem. However, we just go ahead and do that because again, part of that is the general general public has an idea, so well, you don't do that. Well, in fact, we do. And it doesn't mean you had a problem, but if you do, then we also have had a problem. Then we get people into AA or NA and different things like that. They can deal. I mean, we've had people go to Gamblers Anonymous. Over the years, we've had all kinds of stuff. So we really try to.
Well, that's the mission, is to help move them forward.
Yeah, and peel it back as an individual. What's your issues to do? And for the most part, Laurie's biggest issues, quite honestly, was just being stuck. Once you get out there and you start living in a car, or God forbid, worse than that, you lose the car, it's another step down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One of the things we look when we interview people is, what tools are in their toolbox. Her tools were, she has a car. Okay, that's a tool. That allows her to be able to get around. It allows her to go on a job interview, what have you. We look at her background. What are your skill sets? That's a tool. We were able to put her in our shop. And she's taken what she knew, and it's not very hard to teach what else to do from that because, again, she's unafraid. Her confidence level, we've watched that build and grow since she's been here. And so you kind of, I hate to say this because we're not far difference in age, but it's kind of like raising your kids a little bit. You know, we kind of set some expectations. We try to give you the tools you need to meet those expectations, but ultimately she's got to put in the work. You know, we can't want it more than she wants it, and this girl wants it.
I can tell.
Okay,
I do.
I can tell.
And she's young enough. You know, she's right on that. She's right. Well, from this is the toughest part. She's right at that age where we have two ways to go. She's young enough to work towards that independence again and self-sufficiency, but she's just old enough that this has to work for her. Okay, because once you get a little bit past that 60, just in the general world we live in, you know, I'm 63 years old. I don't want to, or soon to be 63. I don't want to be looking for a job right now. That's a tough place to be because there's people they'll say, well, you know what, I'll take that one who's half your age for half the money.
Sure.
And that's just the world we live in.
Yeah.
So, you know, she's got to take from what she's got in the past and figure out how does she use that in the future in a different way.
Yes. So. And Laurie, what does your future look like now compared to what it was before Matthew's Hope entered into your life at that time?
I feel a lot better about myself. They've given me a new life. Total different than it was before. I feel secure, safe.
How amazing to have that support.
Good support system. Day or night, I can call.
When other things had failed you because a health scare happened, which, as you've mentioned, and we continue to mention, it could happen to anybody at any time.
Yes, ma'am.
I think people would be shocked to know how many people we have with health issues that created their homelessness, health issues that not only had created their homelessness, but some of them, we have several folks over the years that are terminally ill that the best we can hope for is maybe we get them into hospice or something so they can die with a little bit of dignity. Health plays a big part in this because health also plays a big part in our financial picture. You know, and anymore, I mean, I can tell you I make a pretty good living and I do not have everyday insurance. That is a fear for me. Having been homeless, I fear something happening and creating homelessness for me again. And it's just one of those things that once you've been there, it kind of always sits on your shoulder, kind of going, I'm right here, you know? So I will just tell you that, and I would tell our audience listening it really does come down to one thing. It can be one thing and it can happen in one day. You know, literally her entire life changed in minutes, not days, in minutes. She went from being up there in the trusses, hanging trusses,
the main caregiver,
to never walk. Yes, and being the main caregiver for these children
and the children.
Okay?
Yes.
And hours later, find herself in an emergency room situation where they're cracking her chest open. Okay, to never going back to what she knew. I mean, that's a tough one.
Yes.
And it's not, unfortunately, it's not as uncommon story as people like to think.
Laurie, what's your goal when you eventually graduate from the transitional housing and leave Matthew's Hope?
Come back and visit.
They've become family. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Just go get a job and be able to be self-sufficient.
Is there something specific that you'd like to go and do?
Go back. I can't go back to what I was doing.
Yeah.
But
you said you're a good cook.
Oh, I can cook now.
She can cook.
Probably do some cooking.
I mean, part of our next steps will be starting to look for what does the end game look like. The biggest thing on the shorter term is getting stable, getting your head straight. You know, I tell people all the time, you know, if you don't have a mental health issue before you became homeless, you will once you become homeless.
Oh.
Because now you're fighting that whole idea. I mean, right now she has a sense of security. She has a sense of family, a support system, what have you. But there's this little voice in the back of your head that plays with you also and goes, well, what if that's not there? When's the other shoe going to drop?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so part of our mission here is to continue to encourage her, and then, okay, let's peel it back a little further.
Mm-hmm.
What makes sense for a 60-year-old woman, right, with her background, and what does that look like? And I've got a lot of different ideas that I've not shared with her yet, because right now it's just a time to let's get stable.
Yeah.
Let's do the things around Matthew's Hope. Let us continue to watch and discover. She's discovering herself. We're discovering things in her. And then God has a very interesting way of taking what little we can do and make it miraculous. Mm-hmm. And I know her story. I find it a pleasure to be in the audience of her story. And I think she's gonna be just fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Laurie, Scott mentioned a nasty Facebook comment that he received at the beginning of this episode. As someone who experienced homelessness, were you aware of these types of opinions and perceptions that people have about
who?
About homeless people?
Just in general.
Am I aware of some of them?
Yeah. Did you know that people would say those types of things where just round them up and give them a shot? And
that is probably the most craziest thing. I know that people get really, really nasty on Facebook about the homelessness and stuff like that. I see it every day because I read through, the Facebook pages. But they need to live it one time. Mm. They need to, well, not that they need to, but it would
open their eyes, maybe.
Yeah, it'll open their eyes.
Perspective.
Maybe you ought to come and take a tour.
Yeah, that's
maybe
a great
you
idea.
should,
sit down and talk with someone.
Right.
What's that old thing? We and I grew up in the same time frame. That if opinions are like assholes, everybody has
Everybody's got one. Some just a little bigger.
Yeah. And for those of you that don't like that I just said that, just for John's well-being, I'll just say send me the nastygram. But it is true. It's like I quite honestly I'm trying to figure out where these people have the time.
They have nothing else to do.
And we live in this strange world that it's not enough for me not to like you. I got to make sure she doesn't like you too.
Yeah.
Right?
I just don't put that much effort. I mean, maybe I'm just too lazy to be that ugly. Yeah. But it's now I will say that just a side note to that is we do have several of our guests that we serve do follow us on Facebook and social media. And it's very interesting to see how many of them come up to me personally and will say things like, hey, I'm really sorry that person said that to you the other day. Mm-hmm. I had one of the gals the other day, she says, can I give you a hug? And I said, well, yeah. I mean, he said, are you okay? She goes, no, this hug's for you. Aww. And I go, well, why is it for me? She goes, oh, I saw what they said. Mm. I saw, and she goes, these people just don't know. And I said, you know what? I said, I thank you. And I really appreciate that because every once in a while, the strange part is the people that should be sitting there going, let's see what we can make happen aren't the ones. And it's people that we're serving that are sitting there going, what can we do?
Turning around into love and kindness. Yeah. And
I just posted with one of our guys who, Jack, who was a veteran, and we helped him get into a program, and he just contacted us in the last day or so, and he contacted us to let us know that he had graduated from the program we'd helped him get into specifically for veterans, that he now had a car, that he was a chef in a 3-star restaurant, that he was playing bass in his church band, guitar. Right? Yeah. But here's what he said. He goes, and I saw that Miss Holly's mom passed away. Mm. And he said, please let her know I'm thinking about her. I want her to know there's someone out here who loves her.
Wow. We need to be more like that.
It's true.
Okay, and this is a guy that could have just gone. He had his life back together now, and didn't owe us anything. But it was important for him to share that, thank you, because he thanked us a dozen times in the message, but he wanted to thank us for what we did to help him move forward. But he also wanted to remind the staff how much he cared. But one person in particular, he goes, I want her to know, I lost my mom too. It's hard. It's a lot to work through, but I want her to know that somebody out here loves her. Mm-hmm. And I just thought that was, those are the kind of things that get us up every day.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Pulls at your heart.
Yeah. Yes, it definitely.
Which is a good thing,
We need more of that. Laurie, what would you say to somebody out there that's listening or watching and considering donating or helping to support Matthew's Hope?
It's a very good thing to do. Your money will be put to good use. That's for sure.
You're living proof of it.
Yeah, I think so. I think if you've got anything to give, just give it. Even if you can't give monetarily, come and volunteer. See what it's about. But being in a situation, if you come here to volunteer, it's got to melt your heart, because it's not about what a lot of people think it is. Mm-hmm. It's about people,
right?
And human people that can't help the cards that they were dealt, basically. But your money you'd be put to good use, because it helps us, helps all of us. Well,
what I've learned is all the guests at Matthew's Hope, and I say all because I feel like it's all of them, it's a snowball effect. Either they come back here and then they help somebody else, or like you were helping another person with their cot, or sure, getting food, or it's such a snowball effect that's going to change so many others' lives as well. It's really beautiful.
Thanks, Laurie.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Laurie, for being on. You really just touched my heart.
Thanks.
And I'm just so proud of you where you're at. And I'm happy that you're on the road to recovery and that you have the support to do that.
I appreciate that.
Because that's important. Now you're going to just take it away and...
Thanks, Matthew's Hope. Yeah. I don't know where I'd be.
Who knows? Somebody might discover you now.
Absolutely.
They'll let me go.
After you cook for them, maybe not. Well, thank you all for watching. We hope that you have fallen in love with Laurie just as much as I have. Please like, share, subscribe, share this. And like Laurie is saying, whether you can donate financially, whether you can come in and volunteer, all of that is accepted. Please go to their Facebook, Instagram, their website, to see how you can get plugged in and help change so many lives. Thank you, Laurie, so much.
Thank you.